Only Murders in the Building is finally back, not only with one, but 2 episodes. I had forgotten how much I missed watching this show, to be honest. All the murder, mystery, and Meryl Streep aside, the hilarious dialogue between Oliver, Charles, and Mabel were to die for. Pun intended. Let me explain what happened in the first 2 episodes of the new season without further ado. Let's start with episode 1, of course. I'm sure you remember how Paul Rudd's character Ben dropped dead at the end of the previous season, just seconds after being introduced. The season continued where the story had left off, but with a few flashbacks. When Mabel realized Ben was dead, she asked whether there was foam in his mouth to figure out whether he was poisoned. But later in the episode, we learned that Ben was actually not dead. He just had food poisoning and passed out on stage, but he bit his tongue while falling. That's why his mouth was full of blood. Oliver was happy to get his lead back and continue with the show even more popularity. But when he, Charles, and Mabel got into the elevator, Ben's actual dead body was on top of the elevator. He dropped onto the floor as the trio got out in a rush. Now, a few crucial things came forward in this episode. First, Ben was basically enemies with everyone, except maybe Mabel and Oliver. He was a douchebag to everyone, including his brother Dickie and the documentary guy Toppert. I'm especially curious about Toppert because first, he's played by Jesse freaking Williams. And second, he said we would never hear from him again, which is unbelievable because if he were a trivial character, he wouldn't be played by Jesse Williams. One character in particular seems to have a beef with Ben, and that's Meryl Streep. Loretta, one of the new actors in Oliver's play. I wonder if it's because Ben made it evident at the table read that he didn't want Loretta to be in the play, or was there something else behind the scenes that we didn't witness yet? Because Loretta was quite angry after Ben returned from the dead, and she called him an asshole. I feel like we will learn more about this in the upcoming episodes. I think the other cast and crew members and producers will also be important as the story goes along, but for now, we don't really know much about them. The producers, the mother and the son, are a bit weird to say the least. That kiss scene was awkward as hell. As for the cast and crew members, it was apparent that Ben had wronged them in different ways, so they may all have problems with him. The apology scene at the apartment made that kind of obvious. One final thing is that Ben did not want to see and eat cookies, although I know he ate one at the end. What was his problem with the cookies? Was he just trying to keep his health in control, or was there something else? I feel like this may come up again. Let's move on to episode 2. In the second episode, we saw the aftermath of what happened in the elevator. Mabel taking pictures of the crime scene was especially important because she saw a piece of evidence in one of the photos later in the episode. I will return to this in a minute. During Ben's funeral, Oliver and others faced different problems. While Oliver learned from one of the reviewers that the play was not good, Mabel met Greg, who introduced himself as Ben's security guy. From his speed, he invited Mabel into his apartment. I immediately understood that something was wrong with this guy. He told Mabel that he had a lot of evidence about Ben's enemies, so of course Mabel fell for the trick. She took Charles with them into the apartment, and when they realized Greg was Ben's stalker rather than security guy, everything was too late. He put both of them to sleep and tied them in a different place. It turned out Greg was getting suspicious of Charles because of Charles' enmity with Ben, so he thought Ben's murderer was actually Charles. Of course, the police saved the two from getting murdered, but listen carefully. Greg had a handkerchief that he got from Ben's house the night he was murdered, so he stole Ben's handkerchief. But if you remember, Ben had gifted the same handkerchief to all members of the cast and crew. And thanks to Mabel's pictures, we learned that Ben had one of the handkerchiefs in his hands when he died. If his was stolen by Greg, that means he had someone else's handkerchief in his hands, so he was murdered by someone involved in the play. That's pretty much everything we know about the murder mystery, and in true Only Murders in the Building fashion, we'll learn more and more about the real killer as the episodes come out. Now tell me, who is your new favorite character? Do you like the new mystery of this season? Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Goodbye!